I got something a little different for you. All the time I get asked questions about brown spots in the yard, or maybe the whole yard is going brown. So today I'm going to give you 10 reasons that I came up with on why your yard might be brown. Might be totally brown, might be partially brown, might have some brown spots on it. We're going to cover 10 reasons in this video. Today's video is sponsored by Yardbook. If you need a software for your lawn care business, I've been using Yardbook to run my business since 2015. Go to yardbook.com and sign up for a free account. All right, I got a picture the other day. Actually, I got 2 pictures recently. I probably got more, maybe I blocked them out of my mind. From customers, they send me pictures, say, hey, my yard's brown. What's going on with my yard? So let's go over some of the top reasons why you might have brown spots in your yard. And maybe we'll just do it as a little bit of a quiz. Some of them I can show you, some of them I can't show you. What about this one right here? Brown spot in the yard. What in the world caused that? I mean, it's pretty green all around and brown spot. Let me see if I can give you a clue. He's in complete denial, but I believe that this is the culprit as far as why this yard has turned brown. Dogs peeing in the yard. Sometimes it'll have a little bit of an orangish tint, and sometimes you'll even see like dark green. You know, you think about putting a little bit of fertilizer on the yard makes it green, but too much fertilizer burns the grass and makes it brown. So dog pee definitely makes the yard brown. I got a feeling that's what this is all about too. Maybe shows up worse in some grass types than other grass types. Look at here. I mean, they're just trying to destroy the yard. What's going on? No accountability around here. What do you got to say for yourself? Absolutely nothing. All right, the second thing I want to show you that sometimes can cause your yard to be brown, and this is the one that this is the customer's favorite, no doubt, and that is herbicide damage. The customer says, hey, my yard's brown. It's probably something you did, you know. Well, let me show you an example of what that would look like. So if you've got brown spots from herbicide damage, it can look like this. Look at this weed. This is Kalinga. This is a separate video. I'm testing out some products. And sometimes when you use products, particularly if it's got dismiss in it, which is sulfentrazone, you can get some browning of the turf. So you see the weed is definitely damaged, but also maybe a little bit of discoloration around the edge of the where I sprayed there on the actual Bermuda grass, which is the type of grass in this particular video. Again, this is one where the customers a lot of times want to say that it was the lawn care company, or the mowing crew likes to blame the weed control and fertilization crew on this. You know, if the mowing crew gets in there and scalps the yard and turns it all brown, they say, I think it was something your chemical company sprayed, you know, which is usually not true. And so one of the things you can say as far as that goes is, usually if you spray something and it's going to turn the lawn brown, you'll start noticing it within a few days. You know, if you spray the yard and then 6 weeks later it turns brown, that usually, if not always, is not something that you sprayed, you know. And another thing you can do is, let's just say I'm out spraying yards and I got 20 yards in the neighborhood and one of them turns brown. You know, you go look at the other 19 that look great that you sprayed on the same day with the same exact products, and they look great. You know, so it's usually something else besides that. But can you turn a yard brown by spraying? Of course you can. You know, usually in this situation, it's me out like spot treating, and I might use something like, you know, you got products like Blindside and Dismiss XT. They all have the sulfentrazone in there that can cause some discoloration to the turf to help get rid of it. But you know, out there spraying, if you're spraying in hot weather, you gotta be a little bit more careful, you know, things of that nature, and depending on what product, what kind of grass type. Spraying the wrong product on the wrong grass, I mean, yeah, you can definitely turn something brown. So that's number 2. Chemical burn, herbicide damage can cause the yard to be brown. Third one was a little bit new to me this year. Let me show you a good example. Now, our weather's been kind of hot and dry lately, but we did get a little bit of rain the other day. My yard holds more water than most, but so it looks okay right now. Sorry for zooming in. Let me zoom back out. One thing I've been noticing, especially if I stand back and look at it, is you can see particularly brown in this area. You know, you get over here, it's more green, and I got over here, and it's like big brown spot. And say, what's going on in that area? And from a distance, it shows up even more. And my shadow may get in the way here, but essentially, you got trees growing there. And what I'm gonna call this is, again, maybe you can see it better from this thing. You see how it's more green over here as you get here. I think there's partially, you know, I'm thinking, well, it's not getting enough sun. Well, I don't necessarily think that's it. I mean, that tree's limbed up pretty good. There's lots of sun coming in here. I think the tree sucks up so much water that, and maybe the soil is more compacted and stuff, but I think this tree is sucking up a lot of the water. And so it's just dried out quicker because of the trees sucking the water out of the ground. Okay, and that's good for the tree, but bad for the grass. I talked with a tree guy the other day. He said, you know, trees and grass don't really go together, and I tend to agree with him. Now the fourth example is similar here, and that is that the lawn is just dry, and I've been seeing that more and more lately. And let me show you a couple of examples. It's been hot and dry here, and this is an area in my yard where the septic tank sits. And the reason that it dries out first is because the way they had to do the septic tank, it couldn't put a whole lot of dirt on there, and it's already a hill, and you know, I don't love it. But it's one of the first areas to dry out. Now, again, let's do some review. Look at that. Compare that dries out quickly because there's very little topsoil, and then you scroll over here and you see more orange tint, and that's him peeing, you know, right there, most likely. So what do you think? Does that look like what you did? And then, so you see almost a different color. You got kind of an orangish tint, and then you got more of a brownish tint where that dries out. Let me show you another example. Over here you got some zoysia grass. Now it's got double trouble because it's struggling with the trees. Trees are sucking up all the water, but it's also zoysia, which is not as drought tolerant as Bermuda. And I was talking with somebody yesterday about this. You know, sometimes people will wait until the yard is already damaged, sometimes dead, you know, or serious damage, and then they'll start watering and try to bring it back. You know, this is a good example. This yard right here is not damaged, it's not dead, but it is super dry. It would be best to go ahead and water this now as opposed to waiting until it's damaged and then start watering like crazy to try to keep it to survive. You know, I could give this a good soaking today. You know, if we get another rain in a few days, it's gonna bounce back and show some life, I believe. But if I wait too much longer, it may be beyond repair at that point and gonna have some permanent damage spots that are gonna have to fill back in. Now, I deal with a lot of warm season grasses. Bermuda grass is extremely drought tolerant. I guess this is etched in my brain. About 6 or 7 years ago, we had a really bad drought in August and September. Super hot. I live in Alabama. The yards were just crunchy. We lost lots of mature trees to the drought, a lot of shrubs. But what I noticed the following year was there was zoysia lawns that had damage, like stuff died, and centipede yards that seemed like there might have been some that died. But the Bermuda yards, I don't know that I saw them die from the drought. And I mean, it was crazy dry and hot, but they may turn brown, they may basically look dead. But the following year, there they come back out green as ever. Now, that's not exactly ideal. You go into winter with a drought, the yard is stressed, you had a cold winter, you may end up with some winter damage. You know, there's a lot of problems with that, but I'm just telling you that the Bermuda grass is extremely drought tolerant. All right, the fifth one is one that I've been seeing a lot right now, and I want to show you an example in my yard, but you can picture this on the whole yard. So look, I need to get out the string trimmer and do some trimming. This is zoysia. I put a little bit of zoysia around the perimeter here. Gets a little bit taller and thicker, and I usually cut it slightly taller. But look, where I snuck the mower over here and got too close and did that. Okay, now that is not the dog pee, that is mowing the yard too short. And where I see that come into play a lot of times when the yard is growing fast. So let's just say, for the sake of a Bermuda yard here, that we're fertilized the yard, we've had a lot of rain, and it's hot weather in the summer, and it's growing fast. But I've told this story before, but I had a customer a few years ago, he fired me and that was fine. The car was brown, he blamed it on me. And I also sprayed his neighbor's yard, which was perfectly green. And I said, you know, how often are you mowing your grass? He said, every 2 weeks. And I said, how high do you mow it? He said, number 2, whatever number 2 means. Anyway, mowing it on number 2 every 2 weeks in the hot summer with Bermuda grass. You can't do that. I don't think you can mow it at a low height every 2 weeks and expect the results to be good. The neighbor, on the other hand, was having her grass mowed weekly, and it looked great. So what I do, sometimes I'll start off in the spring and mow my grass pretty low. I think my mower goes down 1.5 inches. I'll mow it for 1.5 inches. I'll try to do that for, you know, a month or 2 months maybe. But yesterday I was out here cutting the grass. I had to raise it 1/2 inch over what I had mowed it before, but it had been like 10 days, okay? If I would just said, nope, I'm number 2, I cut it at number 2 no matter what, guess what? My whole yard would end up having spots like that where I scalp it down too low. So especially if you're out there mowing in the morning, you got all this moisture in the lawn. I mean, it can really cause a lot of brown spots from mowing. And one of the things my friend James taught me, you know, when you're looking at the lawn, and I think I try to explain this to the customer, and you can see linear brown patterns, like straight lines, that's usually from a lawnmower. You know, it said insects and fungus do not draw straight lines. You know, and so when the lawnmower is showing you straight lines that are brown, that was a man-made failure there that caused it to be brown, likely, okay? So, but you know, sometimes people don't want to hear the truth. I lost that customer and that was fine, but no doubt in my mind, the grass was mowed too short. When it's growing fast, you know, the rule of thumb is don't mow more than 1/3 of the blade of grass off. If it's, I think you can mow it in the evening. If it's gotten tall, raise your deck, mow it later in the day when it's dried out a little bit. Come back a few days later and mow it a little bit lower if you want to get a little bit more. But just taking it back down to the same height can cause some browning of the grass. Number 6, I'm going to mention this. I don't have a good example to show you right now, but it's fungus. The one I see often in my area is called dollar spot. So I saw a yard yesterday just covered in dollar spot. And I say, my question is to the customer, say, hey, how often are you watering your yard? Now, sometimes I think when a customer hears that, they want to know, they think I'm asking because I'm thinking they're not watering enough. And they might say, oh, I'm watering, oh, I water all the time, kind of. And I tell them, I try to encourage them to water maybe less often. Let's just soak it really good once a week. But the key is, a lot of times, when are they watering your yard? And if they're watering in the evening in particular, think about it. You water in the evening because it's cooled off. You think, this is better. I can water in the evening. It's not as hot. The water will soak in. But the water sits on the leaf of the grass all night long, and that causes fungus, in particular this dollar spot that'll show up all over a Bermuda lawn in the summertime. Now, sometimes you can't help that. Sometimes you get an afternoon thunder shower, and that happens, you know, 3 times in a week, and you may have some dollar spot. It's typically something that goes away pretty fast. You can spray a fungicide, and that can help get ahead of it, prevent it, but those things can be expensive, and they only last for a few weeks as far as giving you prevention of that dollar spot. So usually we tell people is, you know, change your watering habits. Again, can't control the rain, but if you're watering in the evening, that's not good. Water less often, water early in the morning, and usually when you put some more fertilizer, nitrogen on the yard, it can help it grow out of it, and you mow off the dollar spot. But that is very common. If you got little brown spots all over your yard, it's potentially dollar spot, but there's other fungus too that can cause your yard to be brown. Number 7, and I'll think back to a story with this, but it could be insect damage. Now, there's a lot of insects. Think about, what was it, 2 years ago, I think, where we had an armyworm that was like a generational crop of armyworms. They come through, and you wake up 2 days later, your yard's brown, and you go out there and there's thousands of caterpillars eating your grass. So, you know, armyworms turn your yards brown. I've seen a lot of centipede yards, they get spittle bugs, and the spittle bugs just go in there, and I think they suck the juice out of the plant or whatever, and it turns it brown. Another one that we deal with sometimes in my area, I remember seeing chinch bugs in a lawn, and this guy waters his yard all the time. So I messaged my friend James. This is when I was starting out in lawn care, and I said, James, he's watering his grass like crazy, but it looks like a dry spot here, but he's telling me how much he waters his grass, and I believe him. He waters all the time, waters too much. James said, oh, okay, it could be chinch bugs. If it looks like drought stress, but you know it's got plenty of water, get down there and look for chinch bugs. And so I start digging around in the grass, and in one no time I found a chinch bug. Now they're tiny. I put on my finger, I took a picture and sent it to him. He said, yep, that's a chinch bug. So I said, okay, I learned, that was my lesson in chinch bugology. So it looks like drought stress, but it's got plenty of water. Could be a chinch bug, and I was able to find one. I think, if I remember correctly, they're like tiny little black bug with maybe an orange or red stripe on. I can't remember. Google chinch bug, you'll see what those little jokers look like. So insect damage can definitely cause your yard to turn brown. The next one is for my Midwestern friends out there, because I usually end up with a customer that typically is from the Midwest. I live in Alabama, warm season grasses, and they want to know why their grass isn't green in March. And I say, well, to put it politely, I'm thinking in my mind, well, it might be something to do with the fact it was 26 degrees last night, and we're not in Kansas anymore. The thing that can make your yard brown is it goes dormant. Our warm season lawns go dormant. Now, somebody correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think we showed you some zoysia lawn that was drought stress a while ago. Maybe if it gets super dry, that this will actually, let's say we're in the fall and it gets super dry. The grass may, as in a survival mode here, go dormant earlier just to try to survive, basically. I think that can happen with cool season grasses too. I don't know if they turn brown, but in the summertime it's so hot, maybe they start going dormant where they don't need as much nutrients. You don't hardly have to mow them anymore. But I could be wrong on that. But I think they're not just go dormant in the wintertime, if I'm correct, but it could be part of a survival tactic as well. A God-given instinct for the grass to how to survive in rough times. But for sure, every year where I live, this Bermuda yard, when it gets cold, it will turn dormant and it will go brown. And there's a difference in dormant and dead, and I have to explain that to the people that move here with cool season grasses. They want to know why their grass isn't green in February or March like it used to be back home, and it's because it's dormant. It's a different kind of grass. We don't grow that stuff here. This is different, so dormant is the reason your yard can be brown. The 9th reason your yard can turn brown is it simply lacks nutrients. I could do a side-by-side test where you put fertilizer on one area of the yard and you don't fertilize the other. It may not be brown, but it definitely will lack color. And if it gets hot and dry, I can show you. Let me just show you. I guess. Let me just do it, whatever. But as I go back here, one time we tried to plant a garden back here, and I think we picked the worst spot in the yard. Now, I've got areas of the yard where I know get plenty of water and things grow well, but back here, you can actually see now it's rocky and hard, and it just doesn't. I think it's probably, if I had to guess, a low pH acidic soil here, and you can see, this is, I tried to plug some grass in here. You're basically trying to grow grass on this and grow a garden on this. So I think this grass is hard, compacted soil, and it probably is not able to take in the nutrients like it would in other parts of the yard, and also the water. I guess water in some ways is a nutrient. I was more particularly talking about, absorbing the fertilizer and the things like that. But point being, if it lacks nutrients, it's not going to have the color as a part of it that is able to get and absorb more of those. And a low pH acidic soil can cause that to happen. In my area, we pretty much have acidic soil, so most of the lawn care companies around here will put lime out on their customers' lawn, including me. That helps raise the pH or at least maintain it. And if the pH gets too low, my understanding, it can make it where the grass basically cannot take up the nutrients. So basically what that would look like is you put fertilizer on the lawn and it didn't respond very well. And a lot of times I'll look at a yard, if it's got a lot of wild onions or wild garlic or broom sedge, those can be indicator weeds, at least my understanding, of acidic soil that can show that the grass needs some lime on it. And the 10th one, I say this for last on purpose, and this does happen, one reason, the 10th reason that your yard could be brown is because your yard is dead. It died. You ignored it long enough. You sprayed it with some kind of chemical. You just let it go, didn't water it for 6 months, and just thought, well, I planted my sod last week, maybe it'll be fine. You know, you gotta water stuff. I mean, it needs, that's when I get customers and they put new sod out and they want to know, when can we fertilize it? When can we, I got weeds coming, there's a piece of nutsedge in it, what can we do about that? You know, and I just tell them, like, guys, here's what we're gonna do. Let's just water it. I tell you what, for the next 3-4 months, you just water it. You just keep that stuff alive. Yes, there's some nutsedge in it. Yes, there might be another weed popping up through the cracks, the seams of your new sod. But I need you just to water it and get it through this summer. And with zoysia in particular, compared to Bermuda, like in this situation, it can take a long time for the grass to root. I mean, even the second year, it's still not very established. I'm not saying you can go pull it up, but it's not as drought tolerant and it's not as established. It needs more water. So you gotta water it. There's other things that can obviously kill on, and sometimes it's things that happen, you know, with the weather. It's not always somebody's fault. I had a few yards this year that we got down in single-digit weather this winter, which is cold for us in Alabama, and I'm thinking of 3 yards. 2 of them had fairly new sod, and it got basically zapped. Another one had like common Bermuda grass mixed in with their hybrid Bermuda grass. The hybrid Bermuda grass did fine. Common Bermuda grass on hard compacted soil did not do too well coming out of winter. So cold winters, you know, there can be winter damage. Again, how healthy the turf was going into winter can determine whether it's, you know, how well of a chance it has to survive the winter. But there's circumstances sometimes beyond our control. Hope these 10 reasons have been helpful for you. If you want to get a weed control and fertilization like me, you can go to lawncarelife.com. There's a lot of resources there, including the Weed Control and Fertilization Academy. That's for people that want to start a weed control and fertilization business, particularly with warm season grasses, because that's what I know about. There's also information about the Lawn Care Life Conference, which is a cool event we've been doing and planning to do again this coming year. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.